welcome to my humble abode. This is my fireplace, where I sometimes clean the cinders at night while drinking wine. Do you like the fireplace? Do you feel it matches my bougie style? Let me show you how I DIY'd this simple upgrade. So to start, you're going to want to give everything a rub down. You want to get it all clean and have a nice fresh template for painting. So I literally just had a bucket of hot water and some Dawn dish soap and wiped everything down, including all this nasty dust, and took some Windex, cleaned off all the glass. And honestly, there was a lot of difference just after cleaning up the surface. Next, I took a 120 sanding grit wedge and I gave the whole fireplace a rub down. There were some broken pieces of trim, as you see, around the bottom of the flooring, and I just took that right off. I needed to paint them anyway. I rubbed everything down with the 120 sanding wedge, and then after that I realized I needed something a little more heavy duty, and I had a 60 grit, so I used that as well. Once everything was sanded down, I used that bucket of hot soapy water and just wiped everything down. Then I taped off my edges. I didn't want to get primer on anything that was already white, since the primer that I used would have discolored it. Word to my people here, very important, you want to use an oil-based primer or you will have to scrape it all off. I used a water-based primer to begin with. Yeah, you see how that went. So while the paint was drying, I worked on sprucing up the mantle a bit. The idea was to draw the eye from left to right and to balance out the height a bit by having taller bookends on either side. I sold my husband on this project by promising to keep it cheap. So the way I did that was by repurposing the window arch from another wall. I got the farmhouse milk jug at Hobby Lobby on sale with some floral decor. I got a leaf garland on Amazon for $8, and the pumpkins were on sale at Kroger while I was getting groceries. For the final touch, I added this pennant garland from some scrap material that I had lying around. It's just made from twine, some basic white fabric, a patterned striped cotton fabric, and canvas material. Created a template, I cut out the fabric, and then I made a copy of the template for some backing material and then sewed them together with a top stitch. Then I added holes to the back of the lining for the pennants that were not made of canvas material. All that was left was stringing the twine through the holes and hanging them from clear command hooks. Okay, so I forgot to take some video footage of this part, but once I had a couple layers of the oil-based primer on, I went over that with a top coat, actually 2 top coats, of regular latex paint. It was Benjamin Moore's Chantilly lace in an eggshell finish. Doesn't really matter what sheen or finish you pick because you're going to be going over that with clear coat at the end anyway. So the one bad thing about white is that it really accentuates every little flaw, which included gaps in the tile along the floor where the wall met the floor, and also on the sides, which I'll show you here in a bit. I just wanted to fix it. I didn't want there to be obvious issues. So I mixed up some sanded white grout left over from a previous project in a bucket, and I put it to work. Okay, so last night while the kids were sleeping, I applied the spray-on grout sealer to this crease right here, had the windows open, fan running, and I let it dry overnight. You may recall I had 2 broken pieces of trim on the floor tile in front. I painted those white and I re-secured them back to the marble with some liquid nails on the back, and then I nailed the corners of the wood together with some basic wood nails and wood glue, and then wood filler in the corner, sanded it, let it dry overnight, and then everything was much more secure and more seamless. I debated adding a stencil design to the tiles, and I did order a really neat pattern. However, it ended up being too busy in the mock-up that we did on paper, and so we didn't go with it. But it did really look pretty, and we kind of hemmed and hawed and slept on it before we made our final decision. I created a little bit of extra work for myself. Before we made a final decision on the stencil, I pulled off this piece of trim, thinking there might be a little more tile behind it to extend the shape of the 12 by 12 stencil. But there was nothing behind it, so I just had to replace the trim entirely, which was no big deal, and it was kind of a happy accident because I added this really neat charcoal trim accent piece to replace it. The piece of trim that I used to fill this gaping hole was a toe kick that you commonly see at the front of a baseboard, and what I did was just painted it a dark charcoal and matte, and then I put liquid nails on the back of the fireplace, put the piece of trim in place, and secured it with brad nails. So all the remaining steps were just lots of little details. I filled in the nail holes with some spackle, and then I put caulk over the top, kind of in the inset on the top of the new piece of trim, and then along the sides of the fireplace along the tile. I used a simple watercolor paintbrush just to touch up where those nail holes were patched on the black trim, and it worked perfectly. So as beautiful as it looks now, it's about to look even better. We're going to add a coat of clear coat, which will give it sort of a lacquered finish, and it'll just shine and gleam under the light when you see it close up. I used water-based polycrylic, which doesn't yellow with time. Used 1 coat, sanded in between with a 220 grit, and then 1 more coat to finish the project. And that's a wrap. This is my beautiful mantle makeover, worthy of a princess of noble birth. Cheers to me, cheers to you, and I hope this inspires your next mantle makeover at your own home.
So I did my best to make you feel wanted. But what about what I want? What about